Everybody, this is Perch, and one of the things that they teach you in tech is to focus on the problems you have, not the problems you think you have. And that's not, people say that like it's some kind of profound statement. I don't know if any of you have been in these douchebag classes where somebody's going, focus on the now, not the yesterday. I mean, I don't know. Thank you for the fortune cookie, dumbass. But in comics, it's pretty common that people invent problems to worry about and then ultra focus on those problems to the detriment of, I don't know, just getting business done. Uh, One of the things that I hear regularly, and it's often used as an excuse, and this is one of those cases where I think people are working their way backward. So what people say, so by the way, and I've sat around with a number of creators, and there's been a few times where people have gotten really animated about this topic. And the topic is, what if we could convince the publishers, Marvel or DC in particular, to reboot their entire line, start completely over, and basically reimagine their IP with new characters. So have a new Superman, new Wonder Woman, new Captain America, just brand new characters. And people get really excited about that. And before long in the conversation, it's always, hey, this would be more representative and it would reflect current values instead of like, but nobody in their right mind can relate to a, war veteran who is frozen in ice. I mean, like that doesn't even seem realistic, says the person pitching a furries sci-fi adventure that deals in multiple dimensions and ghost worlds. We can't possibly relate to a character being frozen in ice and reanimated. That's bananas. Are you kidding me? No. Stick to the reindeer human hybrid who is can open portals and is gay. That's far more relatable than somebody frozen in ice. I mean, come on. Wasn't that a Pauly Shore film? What are we even talking about? Brendan Fraser? I don't. Who did? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anyway, they start getting very excited, and then before long, the conversation turns to, or it doesn't turn, it finally migrates to what I think people have in their heads, which is, and remember, if we could reboot all these characters, then we would get all the royalties. And I always kind of smile and chuckle at that moment because, that's not how it works. That's not how any of that works. And if, for example, Marvel did decide to reboot their entire universe and they created a Latino Steve Rogers, and suddenly it was Steve Rogers with more or less the same origin. I mean, let's say he was, who knows? He was part of the migration group trying to get into the country, and he fell into the Rio Grande, and for some reason it froze him in ice. Actually, there's no way I can go through that pitch without it sounding incredibly racist. I mean, I'm just like, that's absurd. Anyway, sorry. There you go. I'd have to have a lot more drinks in before I continue that pitch. Anyway, terrible. Okay. If that's something you were able to do for Marvel, and then Marvel decided to run with that as their new Captain America, and then, miracle upon miracles, Disney's like, let's make a movie out of that, you're not getting a royalty. Again, have you not been paying attention to current creators? Like, you want to go ask Ed Brubaker how much he got off of Winter Soldier and some of this, and like these aren't making them millionaires, but for whatever reason, people have in their heads this idea that the problem with pay in comics and job security is the fact that they're not creating new IP and they're having to work with all of this old IP, all these old characters. I've heard people say, non-joking, that hasn't the Steve Ditko gotten enough money at this point, and shouldn't that money go to someone else? It's like, well, number one, Steve Ditko is dead, so you're talking about his estate, I guess. But no, that's not how it works. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to know where some of this understanding of the comic industry comes from. Like like Scott Snyder's doing classes. Was there a class that he did called "Here's how you cash in on all these characters" that was filled with just bullshit? I don't think so. I've talked to Scott. He's not a maniac. He's not going to do that. Like, is Bendis teaching classes somewhere in Portland about hey, Here's how I became a billionaire. I made all these. Okay, he's not a billionaire. I'm just throwing that out there. Um, anyway, it's weird, but it's stuck in a lot of people's heads that the problem with comics, and it does make me wonder from time to time when people talk about that, and they use a lot of like, oh, this is better representation and better diversity, and it will become easier for readers to understand, and we won't have to deal with all that legacy and that baggage, and I'll be able to get a big royalty check. It's like, oh, that's the one you care about. It's that one. It's not all this other garbage. It's that one. You care about the royalty check, but bad news, you're not getting a royalty check. Not this way. That's not, again, that's not how that works. I remember a bunch of people were very jealous of Sean Murphy because he was doing the White Knight series, and I remember being told again, not ironically, not, and this was before I was talking to Sean. I remember a handful of a couple of writers and an artist bitching that Sean now gets all these Batman royalties. And I was like, no, he doesn't get all the Batman royalties. I mean, he gets money off his book. I'm sure. Look, I don't know his contract, but I'm sure he got paid to do the book, and then I'm sure he gets some points on the book. But like, if they're doing, it was when the God, what was it? It was. I'm trying to remember the timeline here. Ben Affleck was our Batman at that point. I think that we were getting to Justice League. And the comment was that the Ben Affleck Batman looked like Sean Murphy's White Knight Batman. Spoiler, he does not. But okay, I mean, sure. Yeah, I am also the sexiest man in the country. That's also a fact. That is true. But I just remember people really like, it's not fair. Sean Murphy should be getting all that money for creating Batman. It's like, no, he didn't create Batman. He's not getting all that money. What are you talking about? But this is what people think. And what's weird is when you argue this with people, they will sometimes tell you, well, you don't work in comics. What do you know? It's like, I mean, more than you, what are you doing? But it goes back to that, you need to solve real problems. If comics has problems, and it has many problems, you have to solve real problems. Solving the problem of and kind of related to this whole thing, and I mentioned it briefly earlier, is this idea that there's so many characters, it's too hard for fans to figure out what's going on. I remember this was a very popular point of view right about the same time Game of Thrones was going on. And it always felt very insulting. It's like, I remember even somebody making the point of like, well, a lot of comic readers are younger and not as sophisticated as people who watch Game of Thrones on HBO. And Game of Thrones can juggle a cast of like 20, 24 people. But even then, like a lot of people get those Stark brothers confused because they all kind of look the same. They don't. So, comic books, it's for a younger, more a less sophisticated audience. And so if they're being presented with like hundreds of characters, I remember this came up in person. I was talking about some of my favorite. I don't know why we were talking about this, but I was saying, remember back when they used to make these amazing posters, and it had like all the characters of the Marvel Universe on this poster. I think John Byrne did one, Art Adams has done one, and there was somebody else. I forget who did the other one, but it was basically this jam where you had. I think originally they were from the official Marvel handbook. They kind of pieced them all together in one giant ass poster. And it was awesome. And they sold this thing, and it was like 6 feet by 6 feet. It's just huge. I may be exaggerating a little bit on the size, but it was this huge square poster and it had all the characters on it. It was awesome. And I was talking about how amazing it was. And the person at the table's like, snaps the fingers. That's the problem. That's the problem. I'm like, well, what's the problem? Really awesome poster art is the problem? It's like, no, that's the problem. He's like, normal fans look at that and go, I give up. There's no way I could ever understand that many characters. And I always feel like that's a little bit of projection. I think, again, running a comic shop for decades, I never had a customer ever, meaning even once, come in and go, there's too many comic characters. I can't keep track. Like, can't the Serpent Society have like two snake characters? I mean, they've got like 8 or more. Like I get like there's Bushwhacker and then there's Sidewinder. Like I'm supposed to remember both of these. Like, oh my god, too hard. This is why I'm quitting comics. Too much thinking. Nobody ever said that ever. And today with the internet, Wikipedia, and other things, like you can figure this shit out faster than ever before. It was a lot hard. I mean, like again, for you young people out there, that Marvel published a book. So DC. DC used to publish this DC Universe, like encyclopedia pages. They came in a little shrink wrapped with binder holes in them for these old things that were called binders, and they had like these metal rings, and if you weren't careful, like the metal rings had a little bit of a spring to it, and it would snap on your finger and just gouge the shit out of your hand, and it hurt like hell if you were stupid and allowed that thing to snap on you. Anyway, they used to sell these things, and then you had to thumb through this paper to find the characters. You'd have to learn like your alphabet in order to organize these things properly. Marvel did it too. It was crazy. Those crazy 80s with all their reading. This used to be a thing. Today, you can just, you can go on Google and pretty much figure it out in 10 seconds. But that's how you used to have to do it. I've still got binders in my house with those pages in there from DC. I don't remember if Marvel did binder pages or not. They might have. I know DC did. I actually remember. Yeah, we want to go to super old. I bought those little like round stickers that you would put over the hole to make the hole stronger. Because if you look through the pages too much, then the little holes would start to rip, and then the page would fall out of the binder. So you got these little holes to give it some extra. Yeah. Anyway, this today is this continual problem that people cite. Like way too much. Oh my God, too many characters, so dense, nobody can figure it out, too hard. And I maintain that's nobody's problem. The only people's problem that is maybe some of the comic creators who are, drug addicts. I'm sorry, I don't mean it that. Well, I guess I do mean it that way because there's creators who are constantly bragging about all the shrooms that they're on, and it's like, yeah, maybe the problem is that you're high and you can't remember anything. Maybe that's the problem. That's my prediction. Anyway, let me know yours. Hey, let me know your thoughts here. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.